for the estranged adult children who are going no contact, or the people who are pro going no contact. Imagine this. You're married with kids. There's no internet, no TV, no social media. You don't have parenting podcasts, no Google searches, or any TikTok therapist at your fingertips. All you have is a newspaper, a couple of neighbors scattered around, and the family that you grew up with. That is it. That's your entire world. Now imagine trying to raise your kid in that world with no examples except for the ones that you were raised by. Think of it like living the Amish life. When that's all that you know and that's all that you do, you will repeat the same things that you were told because you don't know that there's anything different. And that's how generational patterns, good or bad, get passed down. So before you go pointing the fingers at your parents or grandparents saying, I would have done it better than them, I want you to ask yourself, would you really? Because unless you lived in their time with their knowledge, their tools, their challenges, their lack of resources, you cannot truly say that you could have done it differently. Now, yes, I'm sure you know better today because we have more information, more awareness, and more support. Therefore, now you don't have an excuse anymore. But we also have new challenges, like chemicals in our food, the rising mental health issues in children, and a world that never stops moving. So no, you cannot parent like your parents did. And you cannot parent every child the same either, because every child is different. But don't let your access to more turn into judgment for those who had less. Break cycles, yes, but do it with some humility. And maybe a little grace for the people who are doing the best that they could with the resources that they had. Because while they will have to answer for their actions, remember that so will you. God bless.
So I'm 59 years old. There was no internet when I had my children. I think it was just coming into play when I had my youngest. She was born in 1992. The only resource that I ever saw out there was the movie Mommy Dearest, which was in like 1983, and I also read the book. And what that gave me was the feeling that I was not the only one, that there were two of us. Literally, that was it. I didn't know anybody else like me. I didn't know anybody else who had gone through what I went through. And I was already, by the time my youngest daughter was born, an estranged adult child. Guess the internet didn't make me do it. There was therapy. There were parenting books. And there was just the knowledge of what the difference is of being kind and loving and safe for other people, let alone our own children, that a lot of us drew upon. This is the abuse excuse, this generational blah, blah, blah. Is there generational trauma? Of course there is. Do we pass things down because, well, in my case, I was very emotionally immature. I was also 17 and a child. And then when I wasn't a child anymore, I was still emotionally immature. I didn't go to therapy until I was 26. At that point, my youngest was 14 months old. My oldest was like 11. It was my job to do better, by the way. That's not on them. That's on me. And I absolutely passed down trauma. And that being said, you know what I didn't do? I wasn't cruel to my children. I didn't behave differently behind closed doors than I did in public. I didn't look for ways to rip them apart or put them in harm's way. I didn't do any of the things that my mother and my grandparents did to me. And they knew better. So this is where I go generational trauma, blah, blah, blah. Because a lot of us who grew up in these types of thought processes under this type of abuse recognize, and we're very confused by as children, that our abusers, in my case, my mother and my grandparents, never did the things to me in front of people that they did behind closed doors. And in fact, in front of people, they look like the most amazing, loving humans on the planet. And that's proof that they could have done better and they chose not to, and that they didn't do the best they could. What do you guys think about this, what this creator is saying? And I don't know if she's a parent. I think she is, but I think the kids might be younger or maybe they're grandkids. I did try to go through her profile, but it was really filled with all sorts of kind of like conspiracy theories and things like that. There was one video talking about how her sister estranged over 20 years ago from the mother she's still in a relationship with. She's the good child, right? And she really ripped her sister apart and shredded her. And I think the sister has a relationship with the father. I think the parents are divorced. There's a bunch of moving pieces in there. She basically said that that sister at 14 really estranged herself because she didn't want to move, kind of thing. And all that tells me is that the sister was not liked by the family, and she learned that the sister wasn't likable, because children in these families, in every family, they learn who one another is and what that value is for each other from the adults in their lives, particularly the parents. So if a parent doesn't like one of the children in the family, the other children don't like that child. They learn there's something faulty with that child. All this to be said, I make these videos talking about these types of mindsets and this type of information because there are estranged parents and adult children out there who could have repair in their lives, who could have healthy relationships. I don't get behind one side or the other in terms of you should estrange or you shouldn't. That's a really personal, individual decision. I do support people where they are. It's not my right to tell them they're doing the wrong thing. In the relationships that can repair, as parents, I'm a mother of 3, I was estranged from my adult child. I did repair that relationship. It's been solid for over 20 years. She asked me for parenting advice. We're in a good place. So I come from both sides of the track, right? And what I'm going to say to you out there, estranged parents, even if you're living your best life without your adult child and you're coming into a good place and you're finding a way to find a new normal for yourself, that shouldn't be synonymous with giving up in terms of being prepared if and when your adult child comes back to be able to have a healthy relationship with them. You don't need to be pining. You're allowed to live your life. I'm not here to give you permission or not give you permission. But wouldn't it be great is like, as you're doing that, I'm fumbling here, I'm like, blah, but wouldn't it be great as you're filling your life and going on and not staying stuck if you took some time to work on your own healing and attached yourself to people who help you learn that taking accountability is actually a beautiful thing, and it is a definition of your character in a good way, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person when you own something that you did was wrong. Wouldn't it be great to attach yourself to people who live in this very peaceful place that's not filled with having to be right and defensive and win? Let me tell you something, like, as somebody who's been there, done this, I would do it the same way again. I didn't say to my daughter, well, you know what I came from, I did so much better, blah, blah, blah. I didn't do any of that stuff. I didn't have to see her memories through my lens to validate her. How she felt about things I did that hurt her or even brought her joy are valid. I'm not in her skin to identify her experience. And to be able to take accountability, to apologize, and to say, what can I do to make things better now and meet those needs? Because that's my adult child, will always be my child. I will always be their mother. I have 3 kids. It's why we are where we are now. And if you're following people who speak like this and your adult child does happen to come back, and in the first 3 years, more times than not, it's almost like clockwork, I would say 2.5 years in, they come back. And do you want to know why? Because they've grown. And they think that they can handle a relationship with the parent that they went no contact with because they've grown. They think they can help heal you sometimes. They think that at least they can navigate you and be in the relationship with the parts of you that they enjoy. And what ends up happening is if they come back to the same person, it ends up being a validation for them as to why they left and why they don't deserve to be in a relationship that hurts them. Or if that parent has done the work, they're able to grow together. And the conflict that they went through, because they find a way to work through that and resolve and trust one another, because trust is a two-way street. As a parent, we have to build it first. It's our job. I know there's a lot of estranged parents out there who feel like, well, how can I trust they're not going to leave again? So that's why I say it's a two-way street. We have to lead by example. We're the role models. We're the parents. Anyway, when they come back, if you're in a place where you feel really secure in yourself and you love yourself, taking ownership is easy because you recognize that the things that you did wrong aren't a definition of who you are. How you handle those things, that's the definition. I wish you all well out there. I wish you healing on whatever that path looks like for you. Let me know what you think about this type of messaging, this kind of creator, that sort of thing. I'm not here to throw shade on this person, by the way. I think this person is quite a trauma survivor. And I think that she's found a way to give grace for things that she hasn't come to terms with. That's just my personal point of view. Anyway, what do you think? And thanks for being here.